Please allow me to introduce myself.
In the northeast of Scotland is a region known as the Scottish Riviera, where many tourists come for the mild climate and the natural beauty of the environment. The small, quiet village of Findhorn began as a fishing community many centuries ago. In this area, there is also a special place of miracles and magic, of growth and renewal. Many people from the four corners of the planet are drawn here to explore their heart's deepest longings. Sometimes these longings draw them to a specific workshop, conference or festival with a theme, such as sacred dance. Sacred dances are both traditional and contemporary movements which connect us with our own divinity, with each other, with the earth, in celebration, in healing, and in deep stillness. Sacred dance was brought to Findhorn by Bernhard Vosin. Anna Barton learned from Bernhard and has been involved with dance for many years. How did it all start?
And so we used to have little sharings or attunements before we started, saying, why do we want to dance together? What are we trying to get out of this? And we realised that the force of the movements of these dances used over the years was extremely strong, and therefore the perhaps warrior dances that used to be used to encourage people to go to war to kill people, to give them courage to be able to do that, that feeling could still come out in people when they did these dances. And so we had to talk about this in our workshops and say that we don't have to use those particular feelings anymore.
Guests participating in programs are often housed in the park in a mixture of old and new buildings. The park is the main living area for the staff of the Findhorn Foundation and other residents of the larger community. Innovation is a key word of the community. This can be seen in the cluster of barrel houses, cleverly made by recycling old whiskey barrels from a local distillery into ecological homes. The older structures, such as caravans and prefabricated bungalows, are being replaced by a growing eco-village, which is part of the global eco-village network. John Talbot, author of Simply Build Green and now living in Australia, was one of the prime movers in the eco-village project.
What we're trying to do is develop a model for sustainable human settlements for living in harmony with the earth. And there's basically four elements that we think are quite important. The first is maybe you could say ecological sustainability, and that's what people generally think of when they think of the eco-village. It's about ecological houses, energy efficiency, renewable energy, using natural materials, growing your own food, all of those sorts of things in the physical quadrant, you might say. But the other three elements are economic sustainability, so being able to sustain yourself over a long period of time in a kind of business that also doesn't deplete the earth. The third element is what we might call cultural or social sustainability. And that's really about living in community, of nurturing ourselves as human beings. Having the chance for creativity and self-expression and personal growth and development and being in community and having a group that we belong to. And the fourth element, which in some ways is the most important from my point of view, is what I would call spiritual sustainability. And that's having a sense of a connection to a larger purpose or sense of place on the planet and our community sort of having a place of fitting, having a purpose in a larger context beyond my immediate human needs.
The community began in November 1962 when Peter and Eileen Caddy, Dorothy McLean and the Caddy's 3 children arrived at a holiday caravan park towing a 9-metre-long caravan. Peter, Eileen and Dorothy were unemployed and living on £8 a week, but had followed a disciplined spiritual path for many years and had complete faith in God's plan for them. The gardens they planted to help feed themselves flourished with spectacular results due to Eileen's inner guidance, Dorothy's contact with the intelligence of nature, which she called the Devas, and Peter's determined action. The giant vegetables they grew attracted many people to come and visit, and then to live and work with them, and a community was born. One of the founder's sons, David Caddy, revisits the community from time to time.
I mean, that just was the way we were living. I mean, I didn't, as a kid, you don't judge it. It just, it's a big adventure. Well, what means that Findhorn's a place of experiment, a place of, pushing the boundaries of what our accepted values are and our ways of living. So that just takes it onto a physical plane. It doesn't just keep it on a spiritual plane. I mean, if you can't manifest those values on a physical plane, why are we on this plane? So Eco-Village is a manifestation of that, is of testing the limits and seeing how we can live in harmony with the earth.
The gardens, which began in poor sandy soil where only weeds and gorse normally grow, miraculously thrived, demonstrating what can be achieved in cooperation and co-creation with the nature kingdoms. Nowadays, Cullen Gardens, next to the park, grows up to 30 varieties of organic vegetables for community use, many in polytunnels, so there is production throughout the year. Composting is the very core of a good organic gardening system. At Findhorn, it is also the consciousness of the gardeners which is important. Peter Caddy put the energy of love into every turn of his shovel, confident that this was the special ingredient which, along with the compost, produced healthy vegetables and flowers. In the gardens, a technique known as permaculture is being experimented with. How do you work with permaculture?
So there were some weeds growing. It is not necessary to remove the weeds. I start with some cardboard here, which I've just laid on the ground. So I will just lay this cardboard over the top, and because that means no light can get to the plants, they will die. And then I can cut a hole for it, and then no weeds will grow, and slowly this material will rot down and turn into next year's soil. So I don't have to build a compost heap, and I don't have to move things backwards and forwards.
Permaculture is made up of the two words permanent and agriculture, and is about designing systems for living sustainably.
That you'll start to get trees in the system. So before these things have happened, the soil is not really prepared for trees.
Let us take a brief glimpse into the life of an independent member of the community and some of his family. Children are a very important part of the community and are encouraged to develop their own individuality, free from the rigid structures found in other parts of society. Craig Gibson, originally from Australia, is a long-term resident of the community. How do you see the community developing?
The place keeps changing and evolving and moving, and in the 30 years of my experience, it's never really stagnated. It's gone through many changes. It's completely different to what it was originally, and it's exactly the same, you know. And I worked in maintenance and in the gardens, and I was the director of it for a while, and I did many things, cooked in the kitchens. I was like a model community member of the type of community of the 60s, 70s and 80s. And then 10 years ago probably I started to wean myself of that dependency and create my own lifestyle. The last 5 years I've definitely been financially independent.
Some foundation staff and many workshop guests stay in Cluny Hill College, a former 4-star hotel that was bought by the foundation in 1975. It is approximately 7 kilometers inland from the park. There are various ways of living in the larger community. One is to be Findhorn Foundation staff. Staff, in return for working in departments such as the kitchen, home care, the gardens and maintenance, receive a small allowance plus accommodation and food. In their individual departments, staff make decisions through a process of sharing, attunement and consensus. Today is the winter equinox, the time when day and night are equal in length, and a special celebration is at hand where the women of the community prepare a feast to share their abundance with the men.
It was like, now it's my turn. So, I mean, tonight we would really receive it back. Would it be helpful?
At the Findhorn Foundation, there is an opportunity for guests, students and staff to work in a new way. Work is mindful and from a centered, peaceful place. It is also joyful, enriching and transformative. Work, aligned with spirit, becomes love in action. The equinox celebration continues. Rituals and festivals are an important part of the community fabric, supporting everyone to feel a sense of home and belonging within themselves, with others, and with the rhythms of nature. The most direct way to get a sense of the richness of this community is through participating in an Experience Week, the core program of the Findhorn Foundation, which begins almost every Saturday of the year. After that, there are many ways to deepen your own personal development and your knowledge and understanding of the community. 1 year after her Experience Week, Margaret McGovern returned to become a longer-term guest, and then a student, a path which can lead to becoming foundation staff.
This is a place where everyone has gone through some difficulty and transformation at one time or another, and it's accepted, encouraged, and held, loved here. So that if you spend your time, as I did, in the garden crying, people will hold you or leave you be as you choose, but no one judges. So I returned for a program called Essence of the Arts, which is a 3-month program that allowed me to rekindle my creativity. I thought that I had actually killed my creativity, and I let it play for 3 months. Part of why I'm here is learning, being confronted with my own, and I felt that I needed group interaction and some structure to do that, that I could do it I could do it more easily if I was in a path that had some structure to it. And that's why I chose the student program. There's also a path in the student program where you're able to focus on learning things that Findhorn can offer easily. And that's maybe about how to hold a group together, how to be vocalizer for a group, maybe conflict resolution, communication skills. And those were things that I wanted to take advantage of while I was here. You know, there are some things that the educational part of this community does really strongly, and I would like to learn some of those things, and the student year helps me do that.
The Findhorn Foundation's main source of income is its workshops, conferences and special events which cover a wide range of interests, from spiritual practice, forgiveness, healing and conflict resolution, to the creative arts, nature and ecology, and English in community. All of these programs aim at connecting with the spirit within, so that guests can discover new qualities and their highest potential, as individuals and as part of a group. For example, we can use music to explore individual and group creativity, to create integration, healing and pure joy. What is it like to hold a workshop?
Basically what I have to do when I step into a workshop is to step in there in a very much in a state of vulnerability and openness and trust and love. And so it assists me in my own journey. It's a co-creative process. We'd like to help to bring people, say, listen, you have the power to create your own rituals, to be your own priest or priestess within your own life and within your own family. So it's drawing upon both contemporary and traditional techniques. But then also there is the personal dialogue with people, seeing how they experience reality and how they have the same challenges and the same states of consciousness and perception that I do. It really gets me much more deeply in touch with my fellow human beings.
One of the focalizers of dance and movement in the community is Peter Valence. What is it about dance that inspires you to give workshops?
The most important thing about any kind of workshop is that it makes people feel part of a community. And it's that experience of being together in a group that is the fundamental thing. So the subject of the workshop isn't so important. So I do workshops concerned mainly with movement and dance, because I find that's the best way to get people linked together, because they don't think so much. And I think one of the things that stops people getting together is they think too much.
Not far from the original caravan lies the present home of Eileen Caddy, one of the community's founders. In 1971, Eileen was told in meditation that she should not give guidance to the community any longer, but that everyone should find their own inner guidance. She continues to share her ageless wisdom. How do you see the community now?
For me, life is change all the time. Pour moi, la vie, c'est le changement tout le temps. And this is what is happening. Changes and changes and changes are taking place. C'est ce qui se passe, des changements et des changements. And I think if we stopped changing, I would be very worried. We would become complacent, we would become stagnant. Et alors, on deviendrait complètement stagnant et un but en même. And we'd die. Et on mourrait. And I feel that there's because of all the changes that are taking place, we're moving.
Et à cause de tous ces changements, en fait, on bouge.
And I thank God for that.
Et je remercie Dieu pour ça.
The changes are not comfortable.
Les changements ne sont pas confortables.
But they're very necessary.
Mais ils sont très nécessaires.
I have any question, but
What is your message to people?
And I feel that to me is really my message, is to be still.
Ça, c'est vraiment mon message.
To go within. To find that
Sois immobile, et va
center,
silencieux, va à l'intérieur. Va trouver ton propre centre.
the source.
La source.
And then to live and move and have our being from that divine center. I mean, that is my message.
Ça, c'est
It's as
vraiment-
simple as that.
C'est mon message le plus important. Il est
But
ça.
people find it so difficult
Mais les gens trouvent ça tellement
to be
difficile
still.
d'être en silence.
They don't know how to do it.
Ils savent pas comment faire.
How do you do it? Well, all right.
Alors on demande comment est-ce que tu
I
fais.
feel each individual needs to find their own technique and the one that they're really comfortable with.
Pour ta-
Whether it's to do with your breath, breathing, and
Ah oui.
breathe for four, count four, and then hold it for four, then breathe out until you get into a rhythm.
Open your heart. Be free. Feel free.
While the sanctuaries are at the heart of the community's life, the Universal Hall is the heart of its physical activity. Meetings, film, theatre, celebrations, dance and music all happen here. The foyer of the hall once housed the visitor centre, but now this is closer to the entrance to the park. During the 9 years that it took to build the hall, from 1974 to 1983, thousands of people gave their time, energy and creativity to produce a building both practical and aesthetic. It is a powerful blend of stone, stained glass, wood and mosaic, all crafted with love, care and inspiration. An inspiring example of cooperation and co-creation emerging from difference and diversity.
I think you can tell how healthy a community is by how much it sings and dances. Indeed, singing, dancing, the arts are at the root, the foundations of the community. And that is why, here at Findhorn, I'm always particularly delighted and reminded by this photograph of the community dancing in the foundations of the Universal Hall before the hall was built, creating that spiralling energy there at the beginning.
Private enterprise is encouraged at Findhorn, but with a common intention to live ethically and with integrity. There are 31 organisations and businesses under the umbrella of a community association. There is an organic store and cafe, charities, many healers and therapists, and also potters, weavers and artists. Peter Caddy's autobiography shares his rich, active life both before, during and after his time at Findhorn. He separated from Eileen in 1979. The co-author of Imperfect Timing, Jeremy Slocum.
Perhaps because I'm a writer, he grabbed me very early on when I was here, and he made me what he called the community scribe. He would make me a member of all the different groups in the community and let me write reports of meetings that those groups were having, so that one group would know what another group was talking about. And in that way I became the community scribe. Yes, we did grow very close, and when it came to his wanting to write his autobiography, he thought that I was the person to do it. So in the last couple of years of his life, which he was then spending in Germany, I went over and lived in his house with his last wife Renata, and we poured through these reams and reams, thousands of pages of records and memories and pieces of guidance, and tried to make some sense of what was an extraordinary life. The result was the book Imperfect Timing. Unfortunately, Peter was killed in a car accident. I was in the car with him just before the book was finished. So he never lived to see his memoirs published, which I think was a great shame, but I hope that I did him proud.
A community-based charity, Trees for Life, is committed to reforesting a large area of the Scottish Highlands with native trees, hoping to bring back the wildlife which once lived there. The work is carried out by volunteers who join conservation work weeks. Speaking about this organisation is the founder, Alan Watson.
In the early days when I was here in the early 80s, there was a lot of talk about cellular evolution. The thing of taking the monolithic structure of the foundation and letting people take parts of that and really use their independence and their creativity and their energy to move it forward. And out of that has come things like the Murray Steiner School, some of the businesses, holistic healthcare and Trees for Life. So it's part of that ongoing organic evolution and unfoldment. And that process, I think, has helped liberate a lot of energy. Nowadays, Trees for Life is a separate, independent charity, still based here, but completely autonomous and separate in any financial or legal sense. So I'm the executive director of Trees for Life, and I have no formal connection with the foundation anymore as such, but I'm still obviously part of the community. And having worked in one of the gardens here in the community for 4 years when I first joined Findhorn, I'd really deepened my own personal connection with nature, my sensitivity. And with that sensitivity then being out in the desolate barren glens of the Highlands and seeing just a few trees or the stumps of trees, I could just feel the pain of the land and feel like it was crying for help.
Bernd Herrmann is a German biologist who works with the living machine. The living machine was built in 1995 and was the first of its kind in Europe. It is an ecological wastewater treatment system. Wastewater and sewage move through a series of tanks containing plant species and bacteria that break the sewage down, mimicking nature's own water cleansing process. This produces water pure enough to meet European swimming water standards. The living machine processes all the community's wastewater in the park. Mark Mironov, an artist who once worked in the home care department of the community. He also creates essence paintings inspired by all beings within the community, both seen and unseen.
I think today I like this one.
How is it possible for you to live here?
Being an American, to get a visa, I had to become part of the membership of this place and part of the student flow, or else I couldn't have stayed here. So that was part of the reason I did it. Not so much because I wanted to be part of this structure, but because I wanted to be here in this energy.
Why are you leaving now?
Because it was complete for me, and I wanted to go somewhere and do other things. And to me, the real spiritual community is the world, not Findhorn. Findhorn's a good place to get in touch with certain things maybe, but the world is where we need to live it.